Story 1. Steven Tyler groomed a teenage girl, possibly more than one, then adopted her to keep her close. The details are sick, and I can't believe he isn't locked up. Story 2. Jack Nicholson was abusive to multiple women. He is rumored to have passed around his girlfriend Laura Flynn Boyle to his friends while they were together. Jack Nicholson sued for assault. He attacked a man with a golf club. Also, Don Henley had a 16-year-old prostitute overdose at his house. He wrote a song complaining about how the media treated him over it called Dirty Laundry. So yeah, he took some flack for it, but he still had a career and has done fine since then. He called the event a poor decision. Don Henley's poor decision. Story 3. Alexander Wong drugged and raped dozens of male models. He had a full-blown modus operandi, and more than 10 victims came forward with virtually the exact same story. Less than 5 years later, he's back to showing on the runway, featured in Vogue, and dressing celebrities on red carpets, with zero consequences. Here's what he had to say about it. "I regret acting in a way that caused them pain, and I will do better." After meeting with 11 of his accusers, he did little to curry favor, but his profits were scarcely affected. With the backing of 2 Chinese conglomerates, Wong launched a not-so-quiet comeback last spring with a star-studded autumn/winter 2022 collection in Los Angeles. At the same time, his former supporters were photographed in his designs, including Rihanna and the Kardashian-Jenners. While the mainstream press began to pour over his return, some critics were outraged at fashion's collective amnesia, which seemed to disregard the severity of the allegations. I really struggled with how to address the situation collectively because it started as one individual and then there were more, but each one had their own story. The designer told journalist Lauren Sherman in his first candid interview since the sexual assault claims were leveled against him. "I know and work with some of the models he raped, and it sickens me that he essentially admits it and is still being welcomed back with open arms by all the powers that be." Story 4. This may be slightly tame compared to some of these comments, but I witnessed some of this firsthand, so I have to tell the tale. Tyreek Hill, wide receiver currently for the Miami Dolphins, is best known for having a lot of kids, right? I knew him before he became a father. We were in college together, and he was dating one of my sorority sisters. I was not a huge fan of her because she was pretty obnoxious, but I still cared about her. She came knocking on our sorority house door around 11 p.m., bawling her eyes out. Come to find out, she told him that she was pregnant, and he started beating her up. The cops were called, and he was kicked out of our Division I college. So he moved on to a Division II college where he was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs. I will always hate the Chiefs because apparently they like to draft abusers. His now ex raised their son with help from us for 2 years before she moved away. Here's where it gets interesting. Of course, after Tyreek gets drafted and becomes famous, she goes crawling back to him. She was there when he won his first Super Bowl. I'm sure it was a fantastic time. Then she got pregnant again with twins. While she was pregnant and he was still playing for the Chiefs, he became aggressive once again and broke his firstborn son's arm. She had evidence to prove it, but obviously it got swept under the rug. Typical National Football League. Thank God she left him after that and has been in a happy relationship with another man. She has full custody of her 3 kids with him, and she has another with the new man. Based on her social posts, he gives her more than enough child support to get by. Just a little story that not a whole lot of people know or remember from the news. I now get to hate every team he plays for, just because I am petty. Story 5. Ted Kennedy held elected office for approximately 40 years, even after leaving Mary Jo Kopechne to drown following a drunk driving incident. Yes, it was covered. Yes, there have been books and movies about it. But yes, he still held elected office, ran for president, and was called a Lion of the Senate. Story 6. The fact that Epstein's list still hasn't been released and no investigations or arrests of any celebrities have happened. We know there are videos of celebrities having sex with underage girls, yet it's been conveniently swept under the rug. Likely because those same videos probably have lots of government officials on them as well. Story 7. Not a celebrity scandal, but the fact that almost no one knows that Mars fabricated the sexy green M&M outrage to cover up their slave labor lawsuit is kind of insane. Story 8. I don't understand how the singer for Red Hot Chili Peppers openly writes about statutory rape in his book, and he's still considered an awesome guy by so many people. Story 9. Kirk Douglas might have brutally raped a 16-year-old Natalie Wood and had an up-and-coming actress killed because she wouldn't get an abortion. Lana Wood and Dennis Hopper know who it was but never spoke about it, only calling him Mr. Showbiz. An anonymous blogger once posted it was Kirk Douglas and that he had heard the story from Natalie Wood's daughter before quickly deleting it. The poster was believed to be Robert Downey Jr. from their previous post history. Story 10. John Hamm was arrested for a hazing act that caused a student to have a fractured spine and almost lose a kidney. Matthew Broderick and Jennifer Gray were involved in a fatal car crash that took the lives of a mother and daughter who were in the oncoming vehicle. Story 11. You can tell this is a United States site when you read so far down, and no one mentions Jimmy Savile, far worse than any of the top comments. Beloved United Kingdom children's TV presenter who was a pedophile and necrophiliac. His whole thing was that children would write in with their problems and dreams, and he would fix the problems and fulfill their dreams. Preyed on boys and girls for decades. Would visit sick children in the hospital, abuse them, and let himself into the morgue. Many people in the entertainment industry knew about him and did nothing. It only came out after his death. Story 12. I feel like people don't talk about Rick James and his girlfriend kidnapping and torturing a girl for 6 days, and while out on bail for those charges, they kidnapped and assaulted another woman for 20 hours. He got 5 years but only served 2. If he was convicted of the torture charge in the first case, he would have been sentenced to life. Story 13. Vince McMahon literally texted a woman and said he wanted all 3 of her holes filled with black men so he could jerk off on her afterward. He then defecated on her. Literal defecation. He took 2 years off and is about to come back. How is this person free? Story 14. Kobe Bryant more or less publicly admitted to raping a girl, and his defense was more or less whoopsies. His only punishment was that he changed his jersey number. Story 15. Trump's assassination attempt. That kid's picture, personal information, history, any interview with parents, everything was gone within a week. Yet Luigi Mangione's entire social media picture portfolio, decades of history, who his parents are, all of it was front and center served up in less time than that. Story 16. Televangelist Creflo Dollar choking his daughter out during an argument and defending fellow preacher Eddie Long after it was revealed he allegedly groomed underage young men to have sex with him. Story 17. Woody Allen's relationship with Suni Previn is one of those scandals that got brushed aside over time, despite the disturbing nature of it. Or Kevin Spacey, lots of allegations, but the public and Hollywood quickly moved on without much real accountability. Story 18. William H. Macy's daughter was part of an SAT cheating scandal to get her into Carnegie Mellon. Somehow Felicity Huffman took all the heat for that. I assume it's because society didn't want the show Shameless to get treated like House of Cards. Not the biggest scandal, but still. Story 19. Peyton Manning sexually assaulted an athletic trainer when he was in college. He paid a large settlement to keep it out of court. I hate seeing him in those stupid commercials. He is gross. I bring this up every time this question gets asked. Story 20. Jim Carrey cheated on his girlfriend and gave her a sexually transmitted disease and blamed her for it, claiming she was the cheater. He was absolutely awful to her. She committed suicide, and he was a pallbearer at her funeral before her family knew what he had done. Story 21. The Panama Papers. Dirty financial dealings of hundreds of politicians, celebrities, and financial titans, and all that happened was a murdered journalist. Story 22. There's literally a phrase, in like Flynn, to describe how Errol Flynn got away with raping 2 teenagers. Story 23. The college admission scandal. When celebrities, including Lori Loughlin and Felicity Huffman, bribed officials and pretended their daughters were in a rowing team, among other fraudulent actions, so their children could get into college. Story 24. Jack Nicholson beat a prostitute so badly he burst her fake breast and caused permanent brain damage. All because she had the audacity to ask for the money he agreed to pay her for sex. Story 25. There was some D-list celebrity who became successful in a different field outside of television but then miraculously had 34 felony charges amount to less than a slap on the wrist. Story 26. People still talk fondly of Eric Clapton like they don't know about his racist rant on stage in 1976. Story 27. I think everyone here is really confusing scandals being swept under the rug. Most of these made the news, there were court cases and publicity, and some people's careers were damaged. But are we supposed to bring up every scandal every time we talk about a celebrity? Story 28. Everyone seems to have collective amnesia about Pete Townsend and the child pornography on his computer in 2003. The collective celebrities rallied around, "Not our Uncle Pete." He denied it, saying, "I was trying to catch them, gov." All of this many years before the collective understanding that yes, celebrities, the vicar, the postman, anyone could be a predator long before the Me Too movement let the celebrity veil slip just a bit. Just because he was the first, no one could believe it. People would need a lot less convincing today because so many have turned out to be true and prosecuted. Story 29. The fact that King Charles has been close to at least 4 of the world's most prolific pedophiles, including Jimmy Savile, and yet his links to pedophiles and child abusers have never been questioned, let alone investigated. Bearing in mind that Prince Andrew is wanted by the United States authorities for questioning about his alleged sex trafficking activities, it looks as if the entire royal family is just vile. Story 30. Fairly recent, but I'm surprised by how quickly everyone stopped talking about the allegations that Elon Musk has been having regular personal calls and meetings with Vladimir Putin for the last couple of years. Story 31. Back in the day, Will Smith watched while his bodyguard beat a man, allegedly at Will's behest, so badly that the man lost an eye. The bodyguard took the blame and did time while Will spent a single night in jail before charges against him were dropped. I forget the guy's name now, but when I looked him up a few years ago, I found that after the bodyguard got out of jail, Will made him part of his entourage. Story 32. 1993 child sexual abuse accusations against Michael Jackson. 2003 to 2005. Michael Jackson is charged with child molestation. Society really failed the victims there. The allegations were widely known, and I think even widely accepted as true, but it was largely treated as a joke and late-night show punchline. Childhood sexual abuse was a punchline. Same with R. Kelly's abuse. And it seems that Weinstein and Cosby sex abuses were pretty widely known in the industry at least, and consequences didn't follow until the dam broke decades later. I just feel so sad about that. These people were and are monsters, and they were absolutely enabled by society. Story 33. That guy who was in Home Alone 2, lost in New York, who went on to lead an insurrection against the United States and was convicted of numerous felonies and never received any punishment. Story 34. Donald Trump's Epstein connection is insane. He basically admits on the record that he knows Epstein is a pedophile and freely associated with him across multiple decades. Wonder why? Story 35. Michael Jackson sleeping with kids over and over again, but he's still praised as a great person like nothing happened. There was a multi-million-dollar rumored 8-figure settlement with one of the boys. And before you preach, would you let your 10-year-old son sleep in the same bed with a 40-year-old male who is no relation? Story 36. Jon Hamm was your quintessential movie frat bad guy. Accusations against him that led to actual criminal charges had him leading or dragging pledges around the frat house with a claw hammer by their balls, engaging in rampant physical and verbal abuse, and setting someone's pants on fire. Story 37. Wallace Beery, along with 2 others, beating Ted Healy to death. Clark Gable driving while drunk, killing a man. Reed, The Fixers, Eddie Mannix, Robert Strickling, and the Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer publicity machine. Story 38. Christopher Walken for sure knows more about what happened to Natalie Wood than he lets on. Both he and Robert Wagner are hiding something about that. I feel like they were all drunk. Natalie and Robert got in an argument, possibly about her and Walken, and she went to either leave on the lifeboat or Wagner pushed her into the water and then let the lifeboat out as a cover-up. Story 39. Jon Hamm put a guy's ballsack in a claw-tooth hammer and walked him around a room. He then set his crotch on fire and buried him alive in a basement grave. His victim has permanent nerve damage to his genitals. But the public often gives handsome, popular celebrities free passes after horrible crimes. Hamm, Chris Brown, Kobe Bryant, Cristiano Ronaldo. Story 40. Oprah being best friends with an enormous piece of shit. Oprah's spiritual healer convicted of raping girls. Story 41. I would say Jimmy Savile is pretty up there. His tendencies were well known but ignored or swept under the rug. Hospital staff were told not to let him be alone in coma wards or the morgue. Story 42. Not the biggest, but one that bothers me with how it's never brought up. Katy Perry's history of sexual misconduct. An actor who appeared in one of her music videos came forward claiming that, at a party, Katy pulled forward the waistbands of his trousers and underwear to look at and show people his genitals. Also, she once tricked a young American Idol contestant into being kissed on the lips without his consent by pretending that she was just going to kiss him on the cheek. The guy was not pleased, as he had been saving his first kiss for the right special moment. I get the impression that the years of fame and being widely perceived as very attractive have maybe gone to her head and diminished her sense of personal boundaries. But that's just speculation,